Chapter 35:10 Imperial Capital of the Divine Prefecture Eastern Palace. Kai Xiu ran over to report to her, beaming with joy. Crown Princess, a large batch of blank jade slips has arrived from outside the palace. Do you want to go out and collect them now? The Crown Prince had been gone for half a day, and Abba was leaning against the bedside listlessly, flipping through the medical book in his hands from time to time, looking somewhat absent-minded. Hearing Kai Xiu's voice, Sir Jojo raised his little head. Let's go take a look. 100,000 blank jade slips had arrived. That was naturally an excellent thing. She had drawn so many talisman arrays in the lower star region, and had used up all the jade slips in her possession. She had been waiting for these blank jade slips for the past few days. Kai Xiu went forward with a chuckle, draped a coat over her, and called Kai Chi out to arrange a carriage. The delivery of the jade slips has been stopped at the Imperial Palace's north gate. Kai Xiu smiled and said to Auber, Crown Princess, go take a look when you're done. This little Crown Princess had been silent for most of the day, reading by the window alone. She must have begun to miss His Highness the Crown Prince. Kai Xiu wanted to distract the little Crown Princess, lest her thoughts become too heavy, so she deliberately instigated her to go out for a walk. Li Yi, Li Yi. Kai Xiu called out twice. Li Yi jumped in from the window like a ghost, looking expressionlessly at the little Crown Princess. Your subordinate is here. Kai Xiu's mouth twitched, and then she coughed lightly. All right, the Crown Princess is going out. Come with us. Yes. Li Yi hugged her sword and stood to the side. When the little Crown Princess started walking, she hugged her sword and followed behind them silently. It was currently afternoon, and the sunlight was very dazzling. The little Crown Princess couldn't help but squint her eyes when she walked out. After boarding the carriage, she leaned against the soft cushion, hugging a jar of peach biscuits, and chewing them one by one in her mouth. Lotus and the rest should have boarded the ship by now. This time, the army would be traveling by water, bringing along close to 50,000 to 60,000 people. Their speed of travel should not be too fast. Kai Xiu nodded heavily and said with a smile, Crown Princess, you don't have to worry too much about His Highness the Crown Prince. You've given His Highness so many pills and talismans, and there are many pharmacists and alchemists in the army. There are also many people with special abilities, so there shouldn't be any danger on this trip. Auber nodded with a listless look. He handed the jar of peach biscuits to Kai Chi and sat up cross-legged. With these jade talismans, I'll be able to finish the drawing tonight. Tomorrow, I'll be able to do some serious business. Kai Xiu couldn't help but twitch her mouth. She knew this little Crown Princess too well. If the little Crown Princess mentioned something serious, it would definitely be something serious like murder and arson. She wondered who had offended her again. Kai Xiu shook her head and said with a smile, Crown Princess, you won the competition at the Mu family. I remember that there was a prize. The little Crown Princess looked as if she had just woken up from a dream. She immediately nodded and said, Kai Xiu, luckily you have a good memory. I forgot about it. It's fine. After we finish our business tomorrow, I'll make a trip back to the Mu family. As they spoke, everyone had already arrived at the Imperial Palace's north gate. From afar, they saw two carriages used for loading goods parked there. Which of the guards didn't recognize the famous little Crown Princess? Seeing her get off the carriage and run over, they quickly put on a solemn expression and bowed in greeting. Chapter 35:11 Greetings to the Crown Princess. Auber waved her hand, indicating that they could dispense with the formalities. She followed them and hurried to the front of the two carriages. She ran to the carriage and opened the curtain to take a look. She took one of the thin pieces of jade and nodded repeatedly. She said to the honest craftsman who delivered the goods, Well done. The thickness of the jade piece was just right, and the size was just right. It was pure white and flawless, and it was very warm in her hand. Presumably, after she finished making the jade talisman, it would be even more beautiful. It doesn't matter if we slowly polish the rest. Remember to send the goods when you have them. Kai Xiu, give them a reward of 10,000 spirit coins. Kai Xiu smiled and answered. She went forward and handed a bag of spirit coins to one of the craftsmen. The craftsmen were flattered and nodded repeatedly. They were just ordinary craftsmen. When had they ever received such honor? They were just making some jade pieces. Unexpectedly, they received such praise from the noble crown princess. In addition, they would receive a reward of 10,000 spirit coins. They simply wanted to wake up from their dreams. Thus, the few of them swore that they would continue to work hard to process the jade slices. After they happily unloaded the bags of jade slices from the carriage, they respectfully drove the carriage away. A white jade talisman suddenly appeared in front of Arber's eyes. It was full of purple light, and all the blank jade talismans on the ground were absorbed into it. Some of the guards at the gate stared at the jade talisman hanging in the air with shining eyes. They secretly said in their hearts, "No wonder everyone says that the crown princess is an extremely powerful great talisman master. It's really so." With just a casual move, such a huge storage talisman was able to take away all the jade slips that were piled up like a small mountain on the ground. Compared to the inner world of ordinary people, which was 3 to 5 cubic meters, the storage space in the hands of the crown princess could be described as empty. A great talisman master was really powerful. She could casually think about how many things she could collect, and it was just a matter of a storage talisman. Arber naturally didn't know that these guards worshipped her in their hearts. She raised her hand and grabbed the purple storage talisman. Then, she turned around and looked at Kai Xiu and the other two. "It's still early. Do you want to go shopping?" Kai Chi was the most lively. When she heard that she could go out for a stroll, she immediately clapped her hands and cheered, nodding her head repeatedly. The four of them then boarded the carriage and had the coachman drive the carriage towards the bustling Changle Street. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Kai Dai Pavilion. The four of them got off the carriage and heard a commotion coming from the street corner. "Wow, Alchemy Master Dan is giving out a gift today. Everyone, let's go and take a look." "Who is Alchemist Dan?" "You're really ignorant and inexperienced. That's the first and youngest divine-grade alchemist in our divine continent. The pills that he makes are hard to find even with tens of millions of spirit coins." Qiao Mu, Kai Xiu, and the others looked at each other in dismay. Li Yi frowned. She hugged her sword and asked mechanically, "Crown Princess, do you want to go over and take a look?" Arber shook her head with an uninterested expression. "No need. She was going out for a stroll today and taking Kai Xiu and the rest to have a meal. She really wasn't interested in knowing what Alchemist Dan was going to do." Li Yi nodded and followed the little crown princess into Kai Dai Pavilion with Kai Xiu and Kai Chi. When Manager Hu of Kai Dai Pavilion saw who came in, he immediately smiled so widely that his teeth could be seen and his eyes couldn't be concealed. Chapter 35:12. Crown Princess, you've finally found the time to come. If you still didn't come. Shopkeeper Hu lowered his voice and winked at her. "I'm afraid that the holy rice, spirit vegetables, and spirit fruits in this shop will be sold out again." Arber nodded. "I'll give you another batch later." The old shopkeeper immediately smiled so widely that his teeth disappeared. "All right, Crown Princess, please head upstairs first." Thus, he arranged for the shop assistants to serve the young Crown Princess and her group. Arber, Li Yi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi were heading upstairs when they heard the sound of footsteps and a fragrant breeze. Looking up, they saw Princess Consort Zhang, Shi Yongqian, walking down the stairs with a soft and slender figure and a charming face. When the two met, Princess Consort Zhang smiled sweetly and nodded at Arber. "Crown Princess." "Greetings to the Crown Princess." Shi Yongqian secretly lowered her eyes to hide the trace of unwillingness in them and bowed. She had learned her lesson and didn't dare to be arrogant in front of the Crown Princess. After the incident at the general's estate, Shi Yongqian didn't dare to get up before the Crown Princess asked her to. Arber swept a glance at her and didn't ask her to get up. She only stared coldly at Shi Yongqian in front of her. After not seeing her for a period of time, it seemed that she had been living quite comfortably and her realm seemed to have improved. Who did he get such a huge benefit from? Right now, She had actually leaped from a 5th grade to an 8th grade spiritual master? She used her spiritual eye to check Shi Yongqian's body, and the corner of her mouth couldn't help but curl into a faint mocking smile. A body created by using spirit herbs undoubtedly looked like an 8th grade spiritual master, but her actual combat ability was probably still stuck at the 5th grade realm. A large amount of herbs wouldn't be of any help to her body. It would only further damage her body and cause her to fall into a false state of advancement. However, Arbor didn't care about all this and didn't need to tell this Shi Yongqian. In any case, just let her continue to court death. She didn't have much time left anyway. Thinking of this, Arbor coldly glanced at Shi Yongqian again. He walked past her half-squatting body with his head held high, not giving her any face at all. Shi Yongqian was so angry that her face flushed red. She turned to look at her elder sister, Princess Consort Zhang, Shi Yongyan. Elder sister, what do you think of this crown princess's attitude? So domineering and unruly. She was just giving her a proper bow, but she actually gave her such a reaction. It was simply infuriating. Completely unreasonable. Shi Yongyan could tell that the crown princess didn't like her second sister very much. However, it made sense when she thought about it. The young crown prince consort had whipped her second younger sister the first time she met her second younger sister. There was no way that the crown prince consort would like her. At this moment, she didn't know why, but she felt that the crown princess's gaze towards her second sister was extremely cold, as if it contained broken ice blades. It was so cold that it was a bit frightening. Shi Yongyan smiled and patted her second sister's hand. Don't think too much. The crown princess's temper is like this. She's still young, so we'll get used to it. Shi Yongqian was instantly furious. That night, Shi Yongqian returned home with a belly full of anger. After throwing around and hitting for a long time, she asked the servant girl cowering beside her, "Is there any news of Miao Sheng?" "Not at the moment," Mississippi Shi Yongqian frowned. She had received news that the crown princess had brought the Qiao family to the capital. She didn't know if the news was true. Early the next morning, the Shi family's door was crowded with people. Chapter 35:13. As soon as the gatekeeper opened the door, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He saw a large group of onlookers crowding around his gate, looking at him with a strange expression. As a member of the 6 noble families, this servant was used to being a tyrant. How could he tolerate a crowd of onlookers in front of the Shi residence? He immediately shouted, "What are you doing?" and was about to step out of the door to chase the crowd away. But when he stepped out, he bumped into something hard. He stared at the air in front of him dumbfoundedly and subconsciously reached out to touch it. As soon as he touched it, he found something strange. He saw that the finger was sinking into the ground along with the fluctuating light halos. As if it was attracted by something, the finger was suddenly rebounded by a force, giving him a fright. He didn't know what was going on, but the onlookers outside saw everything clearly. They saw that the entire Shi residence was surrounded by a large talisman array, completely covering the Shi residence. This talisman array seemed to have built a transparent protective layer, like a transparent bowl, completely covering the Shi residence. The manservant didn't know that there was such a barrier at the door. When he rushed out, everyone saw with their own eyes that he bumped into the thin wall of the bowl and was immediately rebounded by the force. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Everyone had a look of surprise on their faces. These passers-by were actually out to buy groceries early in the morning. They saw that this place was filled with purple light that dyed half of the morning sun. Thus, they were attracted to this place with curiosity. But when they got closer, they found that the Shi residence, one of the 6 noble families, was surrounded by a large talisman array. How scary! Who was so determined to go against the Shi residence that they actually set up such a barrier above the Shi residence? Wasn't this a death trap for everyone in the Shi residence? The manservant's face turned pale and he quickly rushed out of the door. With a loud bang, his entire body was miserably rebounded by the force and fell heavily to the ground, revealing a dumbfounded expression. Everyone could clearly see that the binding power of this talisman array was extremely terrifying. Once it was hit by an external force, it would be repelled with 10 times the force. A group of onlookers gathered outside the Sher family's house and looked around. They shook their heads in sympathy, but at the same time, they couldn't hide the excitement in their eyes as they asked around what was going on. The manservant crawled up from the ground and limped into the mansion, crying out in alarm, "Master, master, something bad has happened." The head steward of the Sher family walked out from the corridor and saw the panic-stricken manservant who was shouting loudly all the way here. He couldn't help but step forward and give him a slap across the face. "What's the fuss about? Our Sher family is such a big family business. How could anything bad happen to us?" The Sher family's butler harumphed angrily. Just as he was about to reprimand the servant exclaimed, looking as if he had seen a ghost, "It's the real butler. Something bad has happened. Butler, go out and take a look. Our main entrance has been surrounded by people using special means. We can't get out at all." "That's utter nonsense," the butler reprimanded. Although the Sher residence wasn't the most prestigious among the 6 noble families, as an old family, who would dare to cause trouble at their doorstep? Chapter 35:14. Patriarch Sher pushed open the door and walked out. His face darkened at the sound of the footman's voice, and he released a strong suppressive aura. What happened? The manservant was so scared that he kept quiet out of fear. His eyes were trembling as he looked at his master with trembling eyes. The steward of the Sher family turned around and cupped his hands at Patriarch Sher. "I'm sorry, Patriarch. It's my fault for not disciplining my servant properly. That's why he ran amok and disturbed your cultivation." Patriarch Sher replied coolly with a cold face. He was about to turn around and walk back into the room when a figure suddenly appeared behind him. The eldest son of the Sher family hurriedly said, "Father, something bad has happened. Someone has set up a confinement talisman array above the Sher family and we're all trapped inside." Patriarch Sher's expression changed abruptly. The footman hurriedly got up from the ground and nodded repeatedly. "Patriarch, it's true. It's true. Just now, I wanted to open the door and go out, but I was bounced back by a wall. There was nothing in front of me, but I couldn't get out no matter how hard I tried." Patriarch Sher couldn't help but fly into a rage. "Who dares to play tricks outside our Sher family? Take me out and have a look." Patriarch Sher shouted angrily. Just as he turned around and walked to the door, several elders with ugly expressions came knocking on his door. "Patriarch! Patriarch!" the elders said one after another, "Did you find out who's causing trouble in our Sher family? What's the matter with that talisman array? Patriarch, the entire Sher family is now trapped inside this confinement talisman array. We have to find a way out." Patriarch Sher's head was about to explode from their words, and he felt a little dizzy. He raised his hand to silence their cries and said with a sullen face, "Everyone, don't panic. Let's go to the door and see what's going on." Okay. The elders nodded in agreement. They followed Patriarch Sher and his entourage to the main entrance of the Sher family. The footman hurriedly ran forward and pulled open the 2 doors inwards. The faces of Patriarch Sher and the others darkened at once. At this time, more and more people gathered at the Sher family's entrance. Looking at the way the crowd gathered at the entrance, there seemed to be an endless stream of people. There seemed to be more than 1,000 people gathered. What nonsense! The elders could no longer maintain their composure and scolded angrily, "What are they doing? Was this group of people here to see the Sher family make a fool of themselves?" Reality proved that this was indeed the case. However, when the crowd outside saw Master Sher and a group of elders appear at the door, they all backed away timidly. The crowded and bustling crowd instantly fell silent. Many pairs of curious eyes swept over Patriarch Sher and the others. Everyone wanted to know if Patriarch Sher and this group of powerful elders could break through the shackles of the gate and walk out from inside. There was a hint of anger in Patriarch Sher's eyes. He stretched out his hand and shouted at the crowd, "All of you, step back." Yes. The elders, Sher family's eldest son, and the steward and footman all took a few steps back. One of the elders even scolded indignantly, "These bastards. Don't wait for me to get out. When I get out, I won't let any of them off." Of course, the crowd didn't know that these elders were cursing them in their hearts. They were just watching the show. Chapter 35:15. The eyes of the onlookers lit up when they saw House Head Sher order for everyone to move aside. It looked like House Head Sher was going to make a big move. Would House Head Sher be able to break through this transparent barrier? What a strong confinement glyph formation. Several cultivators descended from the sky and landed in front of the crowd. The woman standing at the very front was surrounded by 2 or 3 female cultivators. Her eyes were like the stars in the sky, shining with light. When this female cultivator appeared, the male cultivators behind her couldn't help but bow respectfully and smile respectfully at her. "Fairy Hao Fei." The female cultivators beside Hao Fei swept an indifferent glance over them and didn't speak. When the common people saw that even the cultivators had come to watch the commotion, they couldn't help but feel a bit more daring. When one of the women saw Hao Fei standing next to her, she couldn't help but muster up her courage and say to her, "Fairy, you're also here to watch the commotion. I don't know what kind of powerful enemy the Sher family has provoked, but they've covered their entire house from top to bottom. They're trying to think of a way to get out right now." Hao Fei smiled and couldn't help but look curiously at the entrance of the Sher family's house. House Head Sher's old face was cold as he channeled spiritual power into his hands and suddenly sent a palm flying towards the entrance. Hum! A faint sound of air current came from the air. Everyone stared at each other with wide eyes. Only a few cultivators saw that after House Head Sher sent out that palm strike, an even stronger air current bounced back at him. His strength was so great, and his speed was so ferocious that it made people gasp in amazement. Hao Fei's eyes instantly widened. House Head Sher had sent out a palm strike with his cultivation of the 12th level of the spirit realm, but the force of the counterattack exceeded that of the 15th level of the spirit realm. In her opinion, it was no different from the 3rd level of the spirit realm. Hao Fei couldn't help but sigh in amazement. She didn't know if she would be sent flying with her palm if she was trapped in this talisman array. Would she also suffer an even stronger rebound force? This kind of formation could be said to be heaven-defying. Bam! Patriarch Sher barely managed to catch the rebounding force and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. This sudden turn of events shocked all the elders of the Sher clan, including Sher Dalong and the housekeeper. "Patriarch!" They cried out in shock. The patriarch of the Sher clan was sent flying by this force, crashing heavily into a camphor tree behind them. The crowd gathered outside the Sher family's gates were horrified to find that even the towering tree had been broken in half by Master Sher's back. From this, one could see how powerful it was. "Father!" The eldest son of the Sher family panicked and hurriedly rushed over to support the head of the Sher family, who was bleeding profusely. "Father! Father!" The eldest son of the Sher family hurriedly reached out and massaged his father's back a few times. With trembling hands, he took out a large pile of medicinal pills and stuffed them into his father's mouth. While the head of the Sher family swallowed, blood continued to flow out of his mouth. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and there was a stifling feeling in his chest that could not be released. House Head. The elders were all dumbfounded when they saw House Head's wretched state. They looked at each other and then at the crowd gathered outside the Sher family's gates, whispering to each other. Their embarrassment turned to anger, and they couldn't help but shout in unison, "Everyone, let's go together." Chapter 35:16. The Sher clan master was vomiting blood when he heard their cries and wanted to stop them. He had been tricked once and knew how powerful this talisman array was. It was unlikely that he could break it with brute force. However, his mouth was stuffed full of medicinal pills and he was vomiting blood, so the words that came out of his mouth were like gossamer. Without waiting for him to finish, the few impulsive elders all flew to the door. At the same time, they gathered a violent spiritual power in their hands and smashed it against the wall of the gate. Chi chi chi. Wah. Ah. Bam bam. After a few loud bangs, The elders retreated at the speed of light and were flung back by the door's barrier. They crashed into the limestone floor and half of the wall collapsed. Everyone curled up in pain, curling up into the shape of a shrimp as blood spurted out of their mouths. Anxious and angry, the Sher clan master coughed out 2 more mouthfuls of blood. The Sher clan eldest young master was so shocked that his limbs turned cold. He looked at his father in his arms and shouted, "Elders! Elders!" The elders immediately fainted from the pain. The power of their combined attack was naturally much more ferocious than the Sher clan masters. Therefore, the recoil they received was also much more violent than the Sher clan masters. After this, their internal organs were almost ruptured. Cracks also appeared in their Dantian's spiritual ruin realm. They immediately fainted. The onlookers outside the door were even more shocked and frightened. Heavens! The result of the combined attack of so many Sher clan elders was so tragic? Hao Fei couldn't help but click her tongue in wonder. She exclaimed, "What a powerful talisman array, so powerful." "Sister Hao, what talisman array is this?" A round-faced female cultivator couldn't help but ask. "This is a confinement talisman array. It can't have more than one confinement effect." Hao Fei looked at the 36 jade talismans glowing with purple light in the sky and couldn't help but exclaim, "If I'm not wrong, this should be a talisman array set up by an Earth-ranked great talisman master." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Earth-rank great talisman master? In the entire upper 3 provinces, the number of people who could become Earth-grade great talisman masters could be counted on one's fingers. Which Earth-grade great talisman master did this? He acted so swiftly and decisively, not giving the Sher family any way out. Speaking of which, the Sher clan was really unlucky. Of all the people they could provoke, they just had to provoke a powerful Earth-grade great talisman master. Close the door. Close the door. Patriarch Sher lost his composure at this moment and yelled at the steward and the servant. The butler and the manservant hurriedly stepped forward and slammed the door shut. When they turned around, they could see the panic-stricken expression on each other's faces. Was everyone in the Sher family trapped here? At the same time, the Mu family. Inside the clan's gloomy dungeon, there was no sunlight at all. Mu Rochuan had been locked up here for more than half a month, and she was about to go crazy. For so many days, no one in the clan was allowed to see her. Mu Qingya couldn't see her daughter either. Until today, when Mu Rochuan was taken out of the dungeon, she realized that her daughter was so thin that she could be called a bag of bones. Rochuan. Mu Qingya had just taken a few steps forward when she was startled by Mu Rochuan's gloomy eyes when she raised her head. Her daughter's eyes were clearly filled with unforgiving and resentment. Chapter 35:17. Was she holding a grudge against her? But there was nothing she could do. The patriarch had ordered that no one was allowed to enter the dungeon to see her. Although Mu Qingya was worried about her daughter, she could not disobey the old patriarch's order. Old Master Mu was sitting in the main seat in the court. Several elders, the patriarch, and many brothers of the Mu family were present as well. This was a public trial. As Mu Rochuan's mother, Mu Qingya made an exception to come to the main court to listen to the trial. However, she did not have much right to speak. "Mu Rochuan, do you admit to your crimes?" The upright elder Dao spoke in a dignified voice. How could an evil talisman master appear in a talisman aristocratic family? This was the biggest joke in the world, and it was a disgrace to the Mu family. Rumors that the eldest daughter of the Mu family was a talisman master had already spread. Many people came to the Mu residence every few days to make a fuss, demanding an explanation. In everyone's opinion, a terrifying existence like a talisman master must be dealt with as soon as possible, lest it became a threat to the entire divine mainland when it grew stronger. "What crime should I admit to?" Mu Rochuan said sternly. She raised her bound hands and glared fiercely at everyone in the court. "I don't admit to my crimes. I'm not guilty at all. It's all of you. You cowardly and incompetent people can't even protect your own daughter and granddaughter. Someone else said that they would punish me, and you want to punish me? Ha 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 ha." Then, She burst into wild laughter. She did not seem like a normal person at all. Old Master Mu frowned slightly and sighed. Let's not talk about whether you're a talisman master or not. You tried to harm your own sister during the competition and tried to use a talisman to kill her. Are you still not admitting to your crimes? She deserves to die. Mu Rochuan's eyes shot out a poisonous glint. She went against me time and time again. She's just a village woman from the lower star domain, but she doesn't have the self-awareness of someone from the lower star domain. Shut up. Old Master Mu could not take it anymore and roared at her. He looked at her with disappointment. Rochuan, you've disappointed me. Mu Xingchen looked at her indifferently and did not say anything. He only shook his head. Disappointed? Ha ha ha. Disappointed? Mu Rochuan screamed at them. What did you tell me when I was a genius? You are the hope of the Mu clan. You are the only one who can inherit old ancestor Chaoyong's legacy. You will definitely become a heaven-rank great talisman master in the future. Now, you're saying you're disappointed in me? It's because in your hearts, there's a better candidate to inherit the legacy of ancestor Xiaoyong. Mu Roxian sneered, why should I become a useless chess piece to be abandoned when a better person appears? Why do I have to give up everything that I've worked so hard for so many years? If it were you, would you be willing? Do you know how to do it? Bastard! Mu Jingfeng slapped the table and stood up, slapping Mu Rochuan's cheek. This heavy slap in the face dissipated the last bit of kinship in Mu Rochuan's heart. She stared at them coldly and mockingly tugged at her lips. It's precisely because I don't want to lose and disappoint you that I ended up like this today. She turned to look at Mu Xingchen and coldly said, Brother, help me pass a message to Abba. Chapter 35:18. Today, I, Mu Rochuan, will end up like her in Arbor in the future. When the day comes when an even more powerful talisman master replaces her position in Arbor, she will be just like me, pitiful and pathetic. Ha 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 ha. After saying that, she started laughing maniacally. Mu Xingchen had already lost all patience with this younger sister whom he had watched grow up. He coldly said, Don't worry. Jojo's temperament isn't as stubborn as yours. Perhaps you don't know this, but Jojo has always felt that there's always someone better than him. He's never been as arrogant and egotistical as you, thinking that it's unforgivable for a Jojo from a lower star domain to surpass you. After he said this, he turned his eyes away and did not look at her again. Mu Rochuan, on the other hand, laughed with tears in her eyes, a sharp and cold glint flashing in her eyes. Today, all of you look down on me, thinking that I, a talisman master, have tarnished the family's reputation. In the future, I want each and every one of you to be unworthy of me, Mu Rochuan. Mu Jingfeng coldly said, according to the family rules, cripple Mu Rochuan's cultivation, break her arms, and chase her out of the Mu family. Throw her to a remote branch and let her perish on her own. Mu Qingya exclaimed, Old Master, don't. Grandpa Mu also frowned. Isn't the punishment too severe? No matter what, she was still his granddaughter. This child was still young. She had only taken one wrong step, and it was not as if she could not be saved. His original intention was to have this child swear to the heavens that she would never use talismans in the future. He would spare her life and let her go to a remote branch family to strengthen her muscles and bones and temper her temperament. Father, although I'm Mu Rochuan's father, I definitely can't condone her actions. Old Master! Mu Qingya cried. She wanted to say a few more words of persuasion, but Mu Jingfeng glared at her with a warning gaze. Take her away! Jingfeng! Elder Mu frowned. He wanted to say if this punishment was too harsh, but he saw Mu Jingfeng wave his hand and directly had people drag Mu Rochuan away. Mu Rochuan didn't say anything else. She just laughed as she was dragged out. In the evening, Abba received news about the Mu family from the night pavilion. He only skimmed through the information and then indifferently tossed it aside. Li Yi went forward to destroy the documents. Her eyes were filled with doubt as she asked, why did the Mu family only deal with Mu Rochuan now? Waiting for me to come back, Auber said indifferently. Since she wasn't around, if he had secretly dealt with it early on, wouldn't he not be able to sell it in front of her? The little crown princess could not hide the disappointment in her eyes. Crown Prince Consort. Kai Xiu hurriedly walked in and bowed. Someone from the Mu family has come to deliver a letter to Crown Prince Consort. Okay, just put it there. Auber replied with a weary expression and then closed the book with a flip of his hand. Light the lamp and eat. Yes, Crown Princess. Kai Xiu nodded. Just as she was about to leave, she was suddenly stopped by Auber. No need. Prepare the carriage. I'm going back to the Chow family. Kai Xiu was startled but did not say anything. She only nodded and went to prepare. When the evening lights were first lit, the little crown princess carriage arrived at the Chow family's entrance. She jumped down from the carriage with a small floral cloth package in her hand. Kai Xiu and the rest could not help but twitch their eyes when they saw this. The moment the door opened, the aroma of food wafted out. Auber's eyes lit up, and he ran to the dining room. Mother, I'm back to eat. Chapter 35:19. Wei Ziqin came out of the hall to welcome them. When she saw her daughter's figure skipping over, her eyes curved into crescents. Why did you run back? She said this, but her hands involuntarily hugged her daughter and took the small bag she was carrying. It's too boring to be alone in the Eastern Palace. I don't even have the energy to eat. Auber shook her head and snuggled into her mother's arms. Jojo misses Mom. Her mother's embrace was still the warmest. There was no backstabbing and scheming at home, only the sincere smiles of the whole family. Unlike the Mu family, who tried to figure out her thoughts all day long. It was really laughable. However, they didn't know that Jojo's heart was actually very simple. She would be very sincere to whoever treated her well, and treat them even better. Wei Ziqin was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. She reached out and tapped her forehead. You're already married, yet you're still acting spoiled all day long. Even if I'm married, I'm still Mom's daughter. Auber looked up at her mother. Yes, yes, yes. Wei Ziqin smiled and pulled her into the dining hall. Second uncle and the others just happened to come in from the side door. They were all happy when they saw them. Jojo is back. How long do you plan to stay this time? Stay for 10 days to half a month, Xiao Mu said. Kai Xiu, who was following behind, couldn't help but mutter, His Majesty is going to have a headache again. Her daughter-in-law kept running to her maternal home outside the palace. This was really worrying. Wei Ziqin smiled. Will His Majesty say anything if you keep running out? He's busy with a bunch of things. How can he have time to care about me? Sir Jojo snorted. Ran Shi smiled and invited them to take a seat. Eldest sister-in-law, it's good that Jojo is back. She has nothing to do in the Eastern Palace. Auber nodded vigorously. Eating dragon meat is boring when I'm eating alone. Wei Ziqin couldn't help but laugh. The family happily ate dinner together. Meanwhile, at the Mu family's side, Mu Jingfeng paced back and forth in the room a few times, constantly looking back at the door. Patriarch. Mu Liang's voice made Mu Jingfeng's face light up. Come in. Mu Jingfeng turned to look at Mu Liang with a joyful expression. What did the Crown Princess say? The Crown Princess didn't say anything. She only asked someone to accept the letter and sent me away. What? Mu Jingfeng's eyes instantly narrowed. Could it be that the punishment is too light and is still not to her liking? However, if she crippled Mu Rochuan's cultivation and broke her wrists, she would be a cripple in the future. She wouldn't even be able to draw talismans. How could this not be to her liking? Could it be that he had to give the order to kill Mu Rochuan? Mu Jingfeng's eyes glinted sharply. How's the investigation of the Shi family going? Master, there's a triple confinement, rebound, and binding talisman array above the Shi family. Most people can only see the confinement layer. Such a method. Mu Jingfeng's eyes revealed a trace of fanaticism. Have you found out if it was done by the Crown Princess? It should be done by the Crown Princess. Mu Liang nodded indifferently. After all, there aren't many people in the world who have such a special talisman crafting method. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but clench his fists. This daughter must return to the Mu family. He definitely couldn't let such a genius wander outside. Although this daughter of his had always been at odds with him, no matter what, even if he had to resort to underhanded means, he had to make her return to the family. This matter still needed to be considered at length. Mu Jingfeng was currently somewhat regretful that he had fallen out with this daughter of his back then. If he had known earlier, he would have treated her better back then. Chapter 35-20. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Lady Jojo carried her small floral bundle and returned to her pear blossom courtyard. Madame Ran asked Wei Ziqin with a puzzled expression, "Why is Jojo carrying a small bundle around all day? Isn't she a talisman master? She has both a storage space and an inner world. What is she doing running around with such a small bundle around all day? What a joke." Wei Ziqin's mouth twitched. She coughed lightly and said, "Sister-in-law, there's something you don't know. This child likes to carry a bundle around wherever she goes. Whenever she goes out, she'll have to carry it around. This is probably one of her hobbies." "Hobbies?" Madame Ren nodded. "Who doesn't have hobbies, right? Crown Princess, someone from the Night Pavilion has sent news about the Mu family. Would you like to take a look?" Arbor nodded. She took the letter from Li Yi and glanced at it before tossing it back. "Got it. You guys should rest early too." Seeing her indifferent expression, no one said anything else. They turned off the lights and retreated. Arbor lay on her bed, pulled the blanket over herself, and rolled around on the bed. A trace of mockery appeared on her lips. He had already been crippled and thrown to the Branch family. Old Madam still sent people to the Branch family to deliver this and that. Was this just a small token of her affection? A big family was a big family. In the face of benefits, kinship and whatnot were probably just illusory things. The next day, Arbor woke up early and walked out of her room in high spirits. She had just moved her small arms and legs when she saw Li Yi land in front of her with a whoosh. "Crown Princess, the Shi family's grand elder came out of seclusion yesterday." "Oh. Then, did this grand elder manage to break the talisman formation that I set up?" Her 3 layers of confinement, recoil, and binding talisman arrays weren't that easy to deal with. "No." Li Yi shook her head. A trace of adoration for the little Crown Princess appeared on her carved little face. That grand elder only used 10% of his strength. After he was repelled, he didn't dare to make another move. They're currently trapped in the Shi family residence, trying to come up with a plan. This morning, they sent out a signal to the outside world, but it was blocked by a talisman array. But the Shi family's matter has already caught His Majesty's attention. I'm sure His Majesty will send someone to investigate this matter in the next 2 days. The little Crown Princess replied with an "oh," and did not say anything else. Li Yi asked curiously, "When does the Crown Princess plan to deal with them?" "Let's wait for a few more days." Arbor blinked and walked towards the dining room with his hands behind his back. "Sister." Jolin, who was walking towards her, cheered and ran up to her. "Sister, you're up so early." Arbor nodded and looked her up and down. "Little Lin, you swallowed the bloodshed vermilion fruit last time. The fruit pulp can help you improve your physique and train your cultivation. The core of the fruit will help you comprehend your spiritual roots. You should be able to comprehend one of the 5 spirits now." She looked her up and down a few more times before saying, "I'll get Chochio to give you a drop of natural water and see if you can comprehend the 9th level of spirit water. How about you go to Fish Orchid Planet for seclusion for a while?" When Jolin heard this, she nodded her little head. "Okay, big sister." She definitely wouldn't be a burden to her sister in the future. She would work hard to become stronger so that she could shoulder the burden of the Chow family and protect her family. Arbor patted her little sister's head and pulled her into the dining room. Let father and mother know before you go into seclusion. Chapter 35:21. After all, it wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. Once she went into seclusion, it could take a day or two, or even 3 months. The sisters entered the living room just as breakfast was about to begin. Arba brought up little Lin's matter to her parents. Since it was a serious matter of cultivation, Qiao Zhongbang and the others naturally supported it. Moreover, they had all visited Paradise Planet before. It was magical and powerful. Since their youngest daughter could cultivate there, they naturally didn't have to worry about her safety. Arba's family happily finished their breakfast and planned to drink tea in the living room. However, the little monk raised his little head and asked in a childish voice, "Benefactress, the weather is so good today. Can you take this little monk out for a walk?" Arba looked down at the little guy and coughed. She took out a pink square cloth hat from her inner world. "All right then. Put this on. I'll take you out for a walk." The little monk immediately showed a look of disdain. "That's for my benefactress." Qiao Mu's eyes turned, and she took the little monkey out of Paradise Planet. She patted the little fellow's head. "Little monkey, the fur on your face is much better now. Are you interested in going out for a walk with us?" The little monkey was originally covered in hair from head to toe. Now, at least the outline of his face was slightly clearer. After a lot of hair was gone, his little face revealed its original delicate appearance. "Sister, I want to go too. I want to go too." Qiao Sen cheerfully cheered and ran to Arba to show off. "All right then." Arba thought about it and agreed. She put the little pink hat on the little monk's head. "Let's go together." Jolin immediately wanted to join in the fun. Arba thought about it again. If she didn't let the little foodie go out for a walk, she probably wouldn't feel at ease even if she went into seclusion. Rather than that, she might as well go out for a walk. Moreover, she was curious about how the Shi family was doing. The Qiao family's residence was located on Changle Street. They didn't need to call a cab when they went out. They could just walk around. After Qiao Mu and the others exited, they strolled along Changle Avenue. When they saw some odds and ends, they happily bought them all. "Sister, the imperial capital of the divine prefecture sure is lively." Holding a pastry in each hand, Qiao San muttered softly as he ate, "In our Mo Kingdom capital, we can only see so many people walking on the streets during the holidays." Arba raised his hand and patted his younger brother's head. This child's birth coincided with troubled times, and she had been living on Seekong Planet all this time. Even though the Mo Kingdom capital's public security was still okay, she would still be harassed by zombies. Naturally, she had never seen such a peaceful and prosperous world. "Xiao Sin, do you like it here?" Qiao San nodded vigorously. "Then you have to work hard and become stronger. Only then will you be able to protect your beloved home." Miss Qiao kept reminding her younger brother to work hard. Qiao Sen nodded obediently. "Sister, don't worry. I will work hard. Everyone, go and take a look. The Shi family has sent out a distress signal to the outside world again." Wow, they've already sent out their grand elders. How come they still haven't been able to break that talisman formation? This is getting interesting. Ha 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 ha. Some people were teasing, while others were watching the show. Many people rushed in the direction of the Shi family again in a hubbub. Xiao Lin nibbled on the drumstick in her hand curiously. She turned to look at Arba and asked, "Sister, what's going on with the Shi family?" Chapter 35:22. Arba's eyes flickered. "Little Lin, are you curious?" Qiao Lin naturally nodded her little head vigorously. Of course she was curious. She heard that the Shi family was one of the 6 great patrician families of the Divine Province, a large family clan with abundant resources. Now that they were trapped by a talisman array, how could she not be curious? Moreover, talisman arrays? Qiao Lin glanced at her older sister strangely, but she was unable to discern any emotion from the little stoic's face. "Heh heh, It couldn't be that this matter had something to do with her older sister, right? Arbor said expressionlessly, since little Lin is interested, then let's go over and join in the fun. Xiao Lin blinked and hastily nodded her little head. Strange, she kept feeling that her older sister's calm stoic face hid a sharp and cold glint. Arbor led Xiao Lin, Xiao Sen, the little monk, and the little monkey toward the Shi family along with the crowd with an apathetic expression. It looked like the 5 of them were just following the crowd to the Shi family's entrance to join in the fun. Li Yi and Caixiu, who were a short distance away from them, exchanged glances and hastily quickened their pace to catch up. When they arrived at the Shi family's entrance, they finally understood what it meant to be a sea of people that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. There were about several thousand people crowding around the Shi family's entrance at this time. There were even people who specially climbed up trees and sat on tree trunks with tea sets and small tables, leisurely sipping tea while watching the Shi family make a fool of themselves. Too hilarious. Little Xiao Lin's mouth twitched. She looked around and saw many spies sent by various clans to gather information hidden in the crowd. Arbor and the others relied on their nimble movements and Li Yi to open a path for them to squeeze to the front of the crowd. An auntie who was talking until her saliva was flying everywhere said to someone with a smile, "Oh my, there are twice as many people here today compared to yesterday. There are people selling seats at the back. If I want to sell my front row seat, I should be able to sell it for 5 spirit coins." Xiao Lin glanced at that auntie speechlessly. That auntie also immediately noticed them. Her pair of watery eyes widened as she said, "Hey, where did you little fellows come from? It's so crowded at the back?" If he wasn't an immortal cultivator, he wouldn't have been able to squeeze his way to the front of the crowd. Could it be that these weak-looking brats all had extraordinary skills? The aunt looked at them suspiciously. Before she could speak again, a person strode over from the side and cupped his fists at Xiao Mu with an excited expression. "Little miss, I've finally found you." Arbor tilted his head and saw a young lady with bright eyes, white teeth, and smiling eyes. It seemed a little familiar, but Arbor couldn't remember where he had seen it. "Benefactor, don't you remember me?" The girl laughed heartily. "I'm Hao Fei. A few days ago, my benefactor lent a helping hand and saved my life. He even helped me successfully pass through the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation and successfully advanced." When Arbor heard about the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation, he immediately came back to his senses. He nodded and looked at her curiously. "You are the female cultivator who was burned and forged by the thunder fire tribulation that day?" Hao Fei's eyes flashed with joy. She nodded heavily and said, "Yes. I will never forget the grace of rebirth. Please accept a bow from Hao Fei." The auntie at the side instantly fell silent. Chapter 35-23. She was aware of Hao Fei's identity. When this fairy descended from the sky that day, many male cultivators were deferential to her, so it could be seen that she was a very formidable person. But now, this fairy was actually so respectful to this stoic-faced little lady. It could be seen that this little lady was definitely out of the ordinary. Arbor shook his head. "You don't need to be like this. A favor must be repaid with a gushing spring." Hao Fei bowed and stood up with a smile. "From now on, Hao Fei is willing to follow little benefactor and repay the favor of that day." Arbor blinked. "That day, I merely lifted a finger. You don't need to be like this." Hao Fei straightened her face and shook her head. To benefactor, lending a divine object like the giant cauldron that day was a trivial matter, but to Hao Fei, that was indeed an act that saved my life. "Little benefactor, please don't decline." Hao Fei bowed respectfully again. "During this time, I've been searching for traces of benefactor in the city, but I couldn't find you. I didn't expect that I would run into benefactor by chance today." Arbor's eyes brightened. "You're truly willing to work for me? I won't refuse even if I have to sacrifice my life." Hao Fei hastily said, "If benefactor has any doubts, Hao Fei is willing to hand over a strand of her soul." "Sister Hao!" The female cultivators behind her couldn't resist exclaiming. Hao Fei waved her hand indifferently. Her life was saved by the young woman, and if it wasn't for the young woman's help that day, then not to mention advancing into the godrank realm, her soul would have probably been obliterated a long time ago, and even a wisp of ash would have dispersed into the heavens and the earth. Thus, it was merely a strand of her soul, so what was there to mention? If she didn't repay the little lady's favor, she would definitely be conflicted and unable to endure it. If an inner demon developed, it would probably affect her future cultivation. The little stoic cracked her small lips. I don't need a soul. Since that's the case, then consider it as me hiring you. Hao Fei was overjoyed and hastily cupped her hands with a smile. It's already great that little benefactor is willing to keep me. As for hiring me, there's no need to mention it again. I, Hao Fei, also don't need benefactor to give me any more rewards. At this time, the 4 female cultivators behind her quickly stepped forward and cupped their hands. Little girl, we've been traveling Jianghu with Sister Hao for many years, and we've become inseparable. Do you think you can? An awkward expression appeared on the female cultivator's face as she spoke. This was quite a bit of an attempt to force a sale. After all, they were only level 12 great spiritual masters. They were not God Realm masters. If someone could take out a treasure to help Sister Hao successfully advance to God Realm, he must have extraordinary strength. There was no need to reluctantly take them in. However, they didn't want to be separated from Sister Hao. After so many years of traveling together, they had already become like family to each other. They really didn't want to be separated like this. Abba glanced at their troubled faces and nodded. Then I'll hire the 4 of you at the same time. I'll give you a monthly salary according to the market price. The 4 of them immediately beamed with joy and thanked the little girl. The little stoic thought, finally, the Heavenly Pill Dispensary and Heavenly Province Association in the south of the city had hired thugs to protect them. In the future, when her small business expanded, perhaps there would be greedy people coming to make trouble. At that time, with Hao Fei and the others watching over them, she could be at ease. Ao Yi, who was hiding in the shadows, was already silently crying. This was the difference. Chapter 35-24. It was obvious how much the little girl disliked the Crown Prince when he offered himself to her. Look at the female cultivators that the little girl offered to take in now. How good was their treatment? Unlike her and Xiao Yao, who offered themselves to the Crown Prince but no one wanted them. They even had to pay a fee to stay and serve the Crown Prince. Jealousy was heart-wrenching. Tong, who was also hiding in the dark, couldn't help but glance at the kid beside him. He elbowed him and asked, "What are you doing?" He suddenly looked like he had nothing to live for. It didn't seem like anything had happened. Abba was in an inexplicably good mood after taking in a few useful subordinates. He didn't think that he would be able to pick up a few more subordinates just by inspecting the Shi clan. Master Jojo's luck was on his side. It was unstoppable. Jolin was also very happy. Nibbling on the chicken leg in his hand, he asked, "Sister, do you think the Shi clan will be able to escape from this array?" "It's coming, it's coming." A commotion broke out. Everyone looked up at the sky above the Shi clan. They saw an old man with white hair and beard leaping into the air. Abruptly, he launched several palm strikes at the sky above the Shi clan's courtyard. Everyone heard a deafening boom, but the array didn't shake in the slightest. Then, under the lead of the white-haired old man, dozens of elders of the Shi clan launched dozens of attacks in the direction of the old man's palm strikes. Everyone's eyes lit up. They said excitedly, "It seems that the Shi clan has finally figured out a way to deal with this array after a night of silence. They're launching fierce attacks at the same point on the array's barrier. If this continues, the array will definitely break." A group of onlookers were watching the show with relish, and there were also some idle people there who were explaining a thing or two. Such a big commotion naturally attracted more and more people to gather at the Shi clan's entrance. Abba's lips curled into a faint sneer. After watching for a while, he said to the kids, "There's nothing to see. Let's go home and eat." Jolin and the others had been watching the show at the Shi clan's entrance for a long time. They were basically full of fruits and snacks. Hearing their sister's words, they squeezed out of the crowd and followed Auber back to the Chow residence on Changle Street. "Sister, when are you going to deal with them?" Jolin asked curiously. "How did the Shi family offend you?" "They are the employers behind the group of people who went to the Lower Star region to commit violence." "What?" Chow Lin and Chow Sen both exclaimed. Jolin took a bite of the apple and said, "Sister, you have to teach them a lesson." Auber smirked. "We'll talk about it in 3 days." Hao Fei's group of 5 finally understood. So the large talisman array in front of the Shi family's door was set up by their little master? "Let's go. I'll take you guys to the Southern Sky Manor," Auber said to Hao Fei and the others. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, Auber found Stay Up Late and a few others to lead the way. He led a group of Purple Forest guards straight to the Shi family's doorstep. The pork that had been simmered for 3 days was ready for oil extraction. Auber gestured with her eyes. Immediately, a Purple Forest guard stepped forward and brought a chair for her. Little Crown Princess sat down boldly. She took the list of compensation that Li Yi handed her and gave it a shake. The list of compensation fell to the ground. "Let's shout," Little Crown Princess said. "Everyone inside, listen up." Chapter 35-25. The corner of Ao Ye's mouth twitched. He cleared his throat and immediately shouted, "The Shi family members inside, listen up. You're currently trapped in a triple confinement and rebound talisman matrix. If you want to leave, you must agree to our 18 conditions." Everyone was speechless as they looked at Stay Up Late, who was shouting. Stay Up Late couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth when he saw everyone looking at him. His voice was trembling with laughter. "Cough. 18 conditions. None of them can be missing. If you agree, just shout. If you don't, you can continue wasting your time in that talisman matrix." The white-haired Grand Elder led dozens of Shi family elders and naturally heard Ao Ye's shout. He spat angrily. "Ignorant brat, who are you? Why don't you go all out and fight with us? Be serious." Auber's face was stoic as he turned to look at Ao Ye, who was about to speak. Ao Ye coughed and hastily suppressed the laughter in his heart. He put on a serious face and continued shouting in a serious tone, "The Shi family members inside, listen up. We have 18 conditions. If you agree, shout good. Good my asterisks. I won't agree to even 1 condition, let alone 18. Do you think you can trap us Shi family members with a lousy talisman matrix? Dream on. This talisman matrix will one day run out of talisman energy and self-destruct. Just you wait, you little bastard." One of the Shi family elders shouted angrily. The little stoic said expressionlessly, "This person's words are unbearably vulgar. Use the 5-blow thunderclap to wash his mouth." Then, she flicked her fingers and dozens of jade talismans flew up like streaks of light, directly entering the center of the triple talisman matrix. Not long after, a person's blood-curdling wail and howl could be heard from inside, accompanied by thunderous booms. The spectators outside all jumped in fright. The confinement talisman matrix had trapped the Shi family members inside for 3 to 4 days, but it had never attacked anyone before. Wow, as soon as this little stoic came here, she immediately set up an attack talisman matrix and started attacking the several elders in the matrix in a matter of minutes. Stay Up Late flashed a warm smile and shouted at the Shi family members inside, "The Shi family members inside, listen up. Yell if you agree to the 18 conditions. If you don't agree, then you can continue to endure. Even the Daluo immortals can't save your clan." The little girl sat on the stool expressionlessly and took out a plate of cut fruits from Paradise Planet. While she ate them absent-mindedly, she threw out one set of rune arrays after another. Stay Up Late was sweating like a waterfall as he looked at his little crown princess. He felt that the little crown princess's gloomy face was a little scary. If she was willing to speak, it meant that at least the situation had not developed into a very bad one. Once the little fellow did not even have the mood to talk. That meant that she wanted to destroy the Shi family. Dragging it out won't do you much good. Stay up late continued to persuade them, earnestly. Don't think that our little master's talisman matrix will run out of talisman energy one day. You have no idea how many similar talisman matrices our little master has. 3 days won't exhaust your food and water, but what about 5, 7, or 15 days? Chapter 35-26. 1 month, 3 months, a year and a half. He tried to persuade them with reason and emotion. Listen to me. Just agree to these 18 conditions. Let's sit down and talk about the compensation peacefully. Compensation? For some reason, the Sher family felt that these 2 words sounded a little familiar. At the same time, the spies lying in ambush outside the Sher family's house had already returned to their respective houses to report the results of their investigation. The young Crown Prince Consort is abnormal, family head. Young Crown Prince Consort, there's nothing left to play with now. She's going straight to the Sher family's door and using the 5 Thunders array to suppress them. Now she's asking for compensation. Master, in my opinion, it's better to play it safe. Who knows if this fire will burn our house down if we go to the rescue? Such conversations were widely spread among the aristocratic families of all sizes in the capital. Everyone knew that it was that little pervert, the young Crown Prince Consort, who had set up this confinement array to trap the entire Sher family inside. 18 conditions for compensation. It's not a lot. Agree to it and I guarantee you won't lose out. Get your master to come out and talk to me. I guarantee. He was still talking in his head. A slightly aged voice suddenly interrupted his monologue. Who are you? Friends outside, could you please let us know the truth? In this world, there are only a few families who can make the Crown Princess come to their door to collect their debts, Arbor said coldly. The Sher family is one of them. Everyone. Crown Princess, thank you so much. Damn it. You make it sound like it's a great honor to have you come to their door to collect their debts. They must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. By this time, Master Sher had already been helped to the courtyard and stood in the middle of the courtyard. Crown Princess, I didn't expect you to be the one who attacked the Sher family. Master Sher was still recovering from his injuries, so he didn't dare to speak too loudly. May this old man know why the Crown Prince Consort has set up such an inescapable trap to deal with our Sher family? Because the Sher family deserves to die. Arbor's cold voice was like a bucket of cold water, drenching them from head to toe. At the same time, Sher Yongqian was pacing back and forth in her room. For the past few days, she had been strangely anxious. She couldn't calm down. What was going on? Of course, she couldn't have anything to do with the Sher family's siege. This was the entire Sher family's problem. She wasn't the only one trapped in the Sher family's house. What was she so anxious about? Sher Yongqian had been like an ant on a hot pan for the past few days. She couldn't eat or sleep well, and her lips were curled into a firecracker. Miss, if this goes on, Master wants to gather everyone's food for the time being, her personal maid said worriedly. Her personal maidservant said anxiously, if we don't have any food in our hands in the future, do we really have to wait until we are at the end of our rope? Although they wouldn't run out of food in the short term, they were trapped in this house. But as the family continued to consume, there would be a day when they ran out of food. Those Xiozhe with high cultivation could survive without a meal for 10 days to half a month. Chapter 35-27. Poor mortals like them. If they didn't eat for 3 meals, they would be so hungry that they would feel dizzy and weak all over. At that time, they wouldn't even have the strength to escape even if they wanted to. Sher Yongqian was also very vexed. She was a spiritual cultivator in any case and had an inner world that could resist hunger. However, she was constantly unable to absorb food and was trapped in the same place for a long time, so she naturally felt vexed. Moreover, there were large confinement arrays everywhere that sealed all spiritual energy outside the array. Even if she wanted to enter closed-door cultivation, there was simply no spiritual energy to absorb. In this way, Wouldn't she be as miserable as a trapped beast? No, she had to think of a way to get out. Just as Shi Yongqian was pacing around the room, she suddenly heard the little stoic's ice-cold voice that sounded like broken pearls falling on a plate clearly coming from outside the room. Shi Yongqian's entire body inexplicably trembled violently several times. No, that was impossible. It was impossible that the little girl came here to seek revenge after her deeds were exposed. But if that wasn't the case, then what right did the little crown princess have to come and make trouble for their entire Shi family? Shi Yongqian's heart sank, and a bad premonition instantly welled up in her heart. At this time, Shi Yongqian heard her father's voice that was holding back his anger. This old man doesn't know what the crown princess means by this? How does the Shi family deserve to die? Although the crown princess holds a high position and is the wife of the future heir apparent, if she can't convince people with reason, then she definitely can't convince them at all. Yi Lai. Yes. Yi Lai immediately continued in a clear voice. The Shi family indulged their daughter and sent people to the lower star domain Seekong planet with inhumane intentions. They killed more than 100 commoners, and more than 1,000 soldiers from the lower star domain lost their lives in a battle with them. Such a heartless and unscrupulous way of doing things simply deserves to die. When Shi Yongqian heard this, she was so frightened that she fell on her butt on the stool. Was it really because of the incident at the lower star domain Seekong planet that they came looking for trouble? 2. The crown princess, she actually knew about it? Impossible. How was that possible? Could it be that she had already gone to the lower star domain? No wonder they couldn't contact Miao Shang for a while. Could it be that Miao Shang had been killed by them? Patriarch Shi raised his head and roared angrily outside the array. Who allowed my daughter to go on a killing spree in the lower star field? Make yourself clear. Weren't you the one who did it? Stay up late asked coldly. Even if it wasn't you, it has something to do with your daughter. Nonsense. Patriarch Shi roared, and then coughed continuously. He felt stifled and his heart was extremely flustered. Crown Princess, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Looks like you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Stay up late said coldly. How about this? Go to the door and open it. We'll let you meet someone. Patriarch Shi really didn't want to open the door. After all, the Shi family had been trapped here for a long time. As soon as he opened the door, he was bound to see a bunch of onlookers, which was really annoying. These onlookers seemed to have nothing better to do. They liked to wait outside the Shi family's door and continue to watch the Shi family make a fool of themselves. How is it? Patriarch Shi, you haven't responded for a long time. I'm guessing you don't dare to open the door to recognize your people? The head of the Shi clan was infuriated. He gave his son a look. What's so scary about the Shi family? The eldest son of the Shi family hurried forward and yanked open the door. He looked outside with a cold gaze. Chapter 35-28. At first glance, he saw a little stoic girl with an exquisite face sitting upright at the entrance of his house with a fruit platter in her hands. She didn't look like she was here to collect a debt at all. Instead, she seemed to be one with the group of onlookers behind her, completely looking like they were here to watch a show. That was right. Although this young crown prince consort had said that she was making trouble at their doorstep, the one who had been shouting the whole time was one of her subordinates. She had not even moved her mouth twice. Crown Princess. The eldest son of the Shi family glared at the stoic-faced young lady. Who do you want us to meet? Qiao Mu clapped her tender and fair palms twice. Immediately, someone pushed a blindfolded man forward. He stumbled and fell to his knees in front of Arbor. Arbor gestured with her hand. A purple forest guard stepped forward and waved away the black cloth covering the man's face. The sudden blinding light made the man close his eyes in discomfort. When he opened his eyes again, he met Shi family's eldest son's eyes. Shi family's eldest son's pupils contracted in shock, but he suppressed himself and didn't call out, Miao Shang. How is it? This is your young Mrs. Servant, right? Aoyi asked calmly. Who is this? Shi family's eldest son immediately reacted. Perhaps today's incident had something to do with his second sister, Shi Yongqian, and the entire Shi family. However, he was also a shrewd person. After thinking for a while, he immediately denied it. He thought that as long as he didn't acknowledge Miao Shang's identity, the little crown princess wouldn't be able to use a servant to frame the Shi family for some groundless crime. When Qiao Mu saw him flatly deny it, she was neither anxious nor angry. She merely gazed at him coldly and nodded indifferently. Ao Yi. Yes. Ao Yi picked up the list of compensation and read aloud, "The first condition is to offer up your Shi family's second miss, Shi Yongqian's head." The Shi family's eldest son's expression changed. Then he laughed out loud. "What an arrogant crown princess! You brought a servant we don't know and barged into our Shi clan. Do you think it's possible to convict our Shi clan with the crime of defying the heavens with just 3 sentences? Aber looked at him coldly. "I want you to tell me who this person is." Then, without waiting for the patriarch of the Shi family to call out, a shining jade talisman landed on the eldest son of the Shi family. "Young Master Shi, do you really not know who this person is? He's the personal servant of my second sister, Shi Yongqian, Miao Shang." The eldest son of the Shi family was stunned for a moment. After being hit by the dictum talisman, he immediately answered obediently. It was too late for Master Shi to stop all of this. He allowed the eldest son of the Shi family, who was under the control of the dictum talisman, to reveal Miao Shang's identity. Master Shi's face instantly turned ashen and he lowered his body dejectedly. The Shi family is really a rich and powerful family. Aber's icy voice sounded again. "Have this person called Miao Shang recount his crimes anew." Another dictum talisman was shot into Miao Shang's body in the blink of an eye. Miao Shang immediately stood up and guffawed at the sky. He brazenly recounted all of his crimes. This included how he accepted the Shi family's second miss, Shi Yongqian's entrustment, how he repeatedly tried to find the way to Sikong Planet, and how he finally arrived at the Mo Kingdom capital after many failures. Chapter 35-29. He then spoke of how he captured Jolin and how he colluded with the Pangu clan to send a group of subordinates to throw the entire Mo Kingdom capital into chaos. He recounted it all in a smug manner. Everyone was flabbergasted. They stared incredulously at the smug Miao Shang and couldn't help shuddering. This person was done for. Miao Shang deserves 10,000 deaths. Even 10,000 deaths wouldn't be enough to atone for his crimes, Aber said coldly. "Where are the Crown Princess personal guards?" "Here. This person harbors evil intentions and is deranged. He shall be sentenced to the most severe punishment." Aber's icy voice fell into everyone's ears without the slightest bit of warmth. It was like icy spring water flowing past, chilling everyone's hearts. Cripple his cultivation and execute it in public. Serve as a warning to others. Yes. The Purple Forest Guard swarmed forward and broke Miao Shang's arms and legs, crippling his spiritual energy. They picked him up like he was a little chick and dragged him to a nearby pillar to tie him up. The pain of having his cultivation crippled caused Miao Shang to snap out of his daze from the talisman's control. He couldn't help but cry out, "Patriarch, eldest young master, save me. Save Patriarch. I was also acting according to second Mrs. orders. Patriarch, save me. I am so loyal and devoted to the Shi family. You can't treat me like this. Save me, ah. Save me. Ah." As pieces of flesh and blood splattered down, Miao Shang let out blood-curdling screams. The onlookers crowding around the Shi family's entrance never expected to see such a gory scene and hastily retreated in fright. The timid women hastily picked up their children and ran home to hide, not daring to watch the spectacle any longer. Aber said coldly, "Hand over Shi Yongqian's head and this crown princess will release all the children under the age of 10 in the Shi family." "Crown princess, please quell your anger. The Shi family is innocent." "The child is innocent, but for the sins your Shi family has committed in the lower star region, I'm afraid that even the lives of your entire family would not be enough." Aber said coldly, If I don't punish you severely today, how can I face the thousands of broken families in the lower space zone? No. Patriarch Sure immediately panicked. He was completely flustered now. Offending this young crown princess was equivalent to offending the crown prince of the divine land. The crown prince was so powerful that the Purple Forest Guard alone would be difficult for the Sure family to deal with. Of course, he didn't dare to confront the little crown princess directly. He hurriedly cried out, "The crown princess is wise. Miao Shang's mistake has nothing to do with the Sure family." At this time, Miao Shang had already been cut dozens of times. When he heard Master She's excuse, he immediately shouted, "Bullshit! Is the Sure family afraid to admit what they did? Did second young Mistress Sure instruct me to do all these?" Second young Mistress Sure also said that she would capture all the crown princess's family and bring them to the divine land. Then, she would force the crown princess to mutilate herself and beg for mercy. A cold glint flashed across Ao Ye's eyes. He yelled, "How dare she!" Separated by the transparent talisman array, Patriarch Sure fell to his knees at the door and cried out in alarm, "The crown princess is wise, the crown princess is wise. This has nothing to do with the Sure family. If you blame it on the Sure family, then you're being too extreme." Yes, this was all caused by second young Mistress Sure Yongqian. When the eldest son of the Sure family came to his senses, he quickly knelt and cried out. Chapter 35:30. Crown Princess, the person you're looking for should be her. Go, call second miss out. Patriarch Sure turned around and bellowed at an elder. What did this unfilial daughter do to offend the crown princess and implicate the entire Sure family? Xiao Mu carefully scrutinized this family head Sure's panic-stricken expression, and she instantly became puzzled. A person's first reaction in a moment of fear and anxiety could not be faked. Patriarch Sure's current behavior made it seem as if he was completely unaware of Sure Yongqian's actions. Could it be that Sure Yongqian had sent Miao Shang to the lower star domain to capture people on her own and had nothing to do with the Sure family? Or the real mastermind behind Sure Yongqian might not be as simple as Patriarch Sure? She seemed to have thought of something as her eyes flickered. Patriarch Sure, I, the crown princess, am a fair and impartial person. I will not wrong the Sure family for no reason, Arbor said coldly. Do you dare to accept my dictum talisman's test? I dare. I dare. Patriarch Sure hurriedly raised his head and said resolutely, I dare. He no longer cared about being a laughingstock in front of the crowd. If he could save the lives of more than 1,000 people in the Sure family, even if he had to lose face, what harm was there in making a sacrifice? Seeing his resolute expression, Xiao Mu believed him a bit more in her heart. Nodding, she flicked a dictum talisman and asked a few simple questions before keeping it. She looked coldly at Patriarch Sure and said, I, the crown princess, want to confront Sure Yongqian face to face. Second miss is here. Second miss is here. Everyone turned around and saw two elders angrily escorting a woman with messy hairpins and long hair. They were escorting her all the way here. Kneel. Patriarch Sure roared furiously. You unfilial daughter. My daughter, my daughter. Madame Sure cried as she chased after them. She wanted to stop them from abusing her daughter, but an elder flung her onto the blue and white tiles with a flick of his sleeve. You dare to cry? Master Sure scolded harshly. It's all your fault for spoiling her all the time and raising her to be so lawless and arrogant. Now, the entire family had been implicated. You've completely disgraced me. Madame Sure sobbed a few times and wanted to refute, but Master Sure glared at her. Sure Yongqian was forced to kneel on the ground. She felt the hair on her knees stiffen. It was so painful that she almost cried. She turned her head and asked in a soft and delicate voice, Daddy, what are you doing? Patriarch, when I went to the second young Miss room just now, I saw that she had packed up quite a few valuables and was planning to escape. An elder directly exposed her intentions and looked at Sure Yongqian with disdain. Why was she pretending to be weak and innocent now? When he went in just now, she had several bags in her hands and was about to put them into her inner world to escape. He had caused such a huge disaster for his clansmen, yet he still had the face to run away? This was disregarding the safety of the entire clan. Selfish to the extreme. Unfilial daughter. Patriarch Shi shouted harshly again. What have you done? Quickly confess the truth. Shi Yongqian's small face was pale, and she looked like a delicate little white flower. Daddy, what are you doing? What did I do? She saw the stoic-faced crown princess sitting at her door and immediately cursed inwardly. Chapter 35-31. Her maiden heart instantly started pounding nervously. She knelt there and could even hear her own drumming heartbeat. When Madame Shi saw this, she hurriedly pounced over and hugged her daughter as she wailed, "Family head, you're discerning. Don't disappoint our daughter's heart. Our daughter has been well-mannered and sensible since she was young. How could she possibly send an assassin to the lower realm to kill people? How could she be so capable? She's the most gentle girl." Madame Shi wailed. Arba didn't wait for Shi Yongqian to argue. Her fingertips moved, and a light abruptly flicked into Shi Yongqian's forehead. "Shi Yongqian, did you send Miao Shang to Sikong planet to capture and kill people?" "No." Shi Yongqian shook her head decisively. This caused Arba, who flicked a dictum talisman, to reveal a slightly surprised expression as she stared at her without blinking. Immunity talisman. Arba looked closely at her and found the crux of the problem. She nodded as she said mildly. It looked like there was indeed someone behind Shi Yongqian. This immunity talisman wasn't something that just any normal person could draw. This was an Earth-level talisman, and it was the higher-level kind. It could be immune to all negative effects, including dictum, immobilization, restraint, drowsiness, and so on. Arba also knew how to draw it, but this immunity talisman made by an Earth-level talisman master looked rather interesting. Although he wasn't like Arba, who was used to making double and triple talismans, the talisman energy flowing on this immunity talisman was very abundant. It was even somewhat comparable to Sir Jojo's talisman energy. This talisman master looked very powerful. Arba's eyes lit up as she stared at Shi Yongqian. She suddenly reached out and beckoned, and everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Shi Yongqian's entire body seemed to fly out uncontrollably. She swiftly passed through that transparent protective array and was sucked in by Arba all the way from the main entrance, flying directly in front of her. Arba abruptly reached out her small, fair claws and abruptly grasped Shi Yongqian's wrist. "What are you trying to do?" Shi Yongqian shouted harshly. "You used a dictum talisman to test me just now, proving that I didn't send Miao Shang to do those things at all." "Ah." Feeling her bones ache, Shi Yongqian revealed a frightened expression under Arba's tight grip. "Crown Princess, I know you don't like me. Ever since you saw me, you've been targeting me. But I've never done anything to get in your way. Arba's expression was somewhat gloomy, and his eyes that stared at her emitted traces of coldness. "You've offended me from the very beginning." Arba's fingers moved to her neck and strangled her. "Shi Yongqian, don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you're wearing an immunity talisman." She murmured softly, her 5 hard fingers gripping her neck tightly. "Tell me, how should I let you die?" Shi Yongqian gazed in horror at Qiao Mu, who was just inches away from her. She lowered her head slightly and stared straight at him. There was a hint of evil in her eyes, and it felt extremely abnormal. She wasn't a normal person. Shi Yongqian said this to herself in her heart, but her body couldn't stop trembling slightly. "You sent so many people to Sikong planet to cause a ruckus, took the lives of so many innocent people, and almost caused me to lose my most beloved family. How do you think I'll deal with you?" Chapter 35-32. Dad. Shi Yongqian kept calling for Patriarch Shi, her body trembling uncontrollably. "She's a lunatic, Dad. She's a lunatic, Dad. Save me, Dad. She's a lunatic. Arbor choked her little mouth, forcing her to raise her head and open her mouth with great difficulty. Shi Yongqian's eyes revealed deep fear. She shook her head repeatedly, crying until her snot and tears were all over her face. So dirty. Arbor flicked her finger, and Shi Yongqian felt as if her throat was on fire. Something seemed to be wrapped in flames and rolled down her throat. It burned her organs and slid to the deepest part of her heart and lungs. Ugh, ugh. She tried to spit it out, but that pill-like thing melted in her mouth, turning into a stream of heat and disappearing without a trace. Shi Yongqian was too terrified. Her entire body trembled as she kept wailing, "No, don't kill me, don't kill me. Don't kill me. I won't kill you." Arbor looked at her with a gloomy gaze. She suddenly reached out a finger and very discreetly inserted a talisman between her brows. She leaned close to her ear and whispered, "I will let you, in the most painful way, die in the hands of the person you love the most." "No, impossible, no, impossible, impossible." Arbor tilted her little head and looked at her coldly. "Why is it impossible?" She leaned close to her ear and whispered word by word, "I gave you the most poisonous curse in the world. I curse you to be killed by the person you love the most, in the most painful and lowly position, to never fall into the cycle of reincarnation, to never be reincarnated." Her voice was cold and emotionless, like a poisonous spring that brushed past Shi Yongqian's heart. It was so vicious and terrifying that Shi Yongqian couldn't help but tremble. Her eyes widened in fright as she gazed at Xiao Mu in horror with an extremely contorted posture. "No, no, impossible. Impossible. You are, save me, Father, save me. She is a pervert, she is a talisman. Talisman." A gust of hot air suddenly rose from her heart and lungs, blocking her throat and burning it to the point that she couldn't make a sound at all. Shi Yongqian wriggled her body and covered her mouth with her hand in panic. Her eyes were filled with shock. She turned her head to look in the direction of her father and the others, and then turned to look in the direction of the crowd of confused citizens. Shi Yongqian's mouth kept moving and her lips kept moving. She kept repeating the same sentence. "The Crown Princess is an evil charm master, she is a charm master, a charm master." But the crowd only saw her lips trembling. How could they figure out what she was talking about? They saw her face was distorted, her expression was ferocious and green, everyone kept retreating. How could they dare to look at her? As if she had gone mad, Shi Yongqian pointed at Arbor and screamed, "Charm Master! Charm Master!" She was a charm master. She was a charm master that was not tolerated by the world. As long as her identity as a charm master was exposed, then there was nothing else to say. She was bound to become a person who was reviled and despised by the world. Just like that high and mighty Mu family's eldest Miss Mu Rochuan, she was despised by the world and abandoned by her family because her ugly identity as a charm master was exposed. Chapter 35-33. Shi Yongqian looked like she was possessed. The young crown prince consort glanced at her coldly and then retreated several steps. She repeatedly shouted as though she was putting on an act, "Hurry and stop her. This person has gone mad." The purple forest guards quickly rushed forward and blocked Shi Yongqian's path. "Why haven't you retreated yet?" they shouted with disdain. "You'll be held responsible if you disturb the crown princess." Shi Yongqian was about to go crazy. She rushed to the front of the crowd and grabbed a passerby by the chest. Her eyes were practically glowing red as she stared at the passerby. She screamed, "Pen, pen, pen, pen." She wanted to write down the crimes of the young crown princess so that this damned talisman master would have nowhere to hide. Arbor flicked his sleeve and opened a small gap in the talisman array above the Shi residence. He looked at Patriarch Shi coldly. "Come out." Family head Shi immediately walked out and bowed to the young crown prince consort. Stay Up Late immediately stepped forward and handed a list of compensation to the Shi family head. Patriarch Shi's eyelids twitched as he read through the list. His heart clenched and tears welled up in his eyes. This This compensation was going to empty the entire Sher family's pockets. Our crown princess has changed her mind. As long as you expel second Miss Sher from the Sher family, her life will be spared, Aoyi said coldly. Also, you must abide by the second condition. Hand over all the subordinates related to second Miss Sher and Miao Sheng. The third condition is that the Sher family's mine on Mount Heaven Saint will belong to the crown princess from now on. As for the other miscellaneous items, there are more than a dozen lines of compensation. You've seen them yourself just now. You have half a month to settle all the compensation. Sign it if you can. If you can't, fine. Patriarch Sher wanted to cry but had no tears. But what else could he say? It was already good enough that he could save the lives of most of them. He wasn't a fool. How could he not know that Sher Yongqian had indeed sent people to the lower star field to cause trouble? The little crown princess only asked them to hand over the people related to Sher Yongqian and Miao Sheng. Letting go of the rest of the Sher family was already being extremely benevolent. As a matter of fact, the little crown princess also needed this group of people to intimidate those idiots who were ready to make a move. She wanted to warn them not to think too highly of themselves and to take care of themselves. Immediately, the entire Sher family was filled with cries and wails. All the disciples related to Sher Yongqian and Miao Shang were brought out. Abba looked at them coldly and handed them over to stay up late. Listen up. If anyone dares to touch this crown princess's family in the future, I'll kill them. These people will serve as a warning to you. Life is precious. Don't disregard the life and death of your family. If there's anyone from the Sher family who wants to avenge these people, come at me if you're not afraid of death. Don't blame this crown princess for not warning you. Abba looked at Patriarch Sher coldly. If anyone from the Sher family comes looking for this crown princess for revenge, this crown princess will destroy your entire family. Don't bring trouble to yourselves. Patriarch Sher's pupils shrank. He quickly shouted, No, we wouldn't dare. We wouldn't dare. The Sher family has no intention of disrespecting the crown princess. The Sher family is willing to sign the contract and serve the crown princess and His Highness the Crown Prince for generations to come. Good that you're sensible, Abba said coldly, her stoic face expressionless. Chapter 35-34. Tong, form a small debt collection team and collect all of the Sher family's debts within half a month. When the time comes, transport them to Sikong planet. Yes, Crown Princess. The Mo Kingdom capital had suffered a great calamity and urgently needed supplies and money to support it. On what basis could those people peacefully sit in this divine province and enjoy life after throwing the city's citizens into utter chaos and losing both their wealth and lives? They had to compensate. Even if it wasn't the Sher family's fault, who told them to raise such a troublemaker daughter? Since they didn't know how to raise a child, then they would bear the bitter consequences this child brought them. Leaving behind Aoyi and his group to supervise the punishment, Abba then left first with Saishio and Li Yi. The young crown prince consort walked anxiously at the front, her back view seeming a bit lonely. Saishio and Li Yi exchanged glances before hastily chasing after her. For some reason, although the crown princess was unstoppable in her massacre, Saishio and Li Yi could both sense that the young crown princess was currently in a bad mood. In reality, the young crown princess was indeed in a very bad mood. She walked extremely quickly, and as her plain white robes fluttered, a sense of irritation arose spontaneously. Although I've settled a long-standing enmity, reality has proven that I'm not happy right now. How I wish that you were by my side right now, accompanying me. Her icy eyes turned slightly, and she suddenly saw peach blossoms fluttering and scattering in the sky. In her daze, she saw a red-clothed man holding a small pink umbrella walk to her side with light steps. He said with a grin, My Jojo seems to be in a very bad mood. Abba glanced at him and saw that he was actually carrying a bald little monk in his hand. That little thing kept kicking his legs and clasped his palms together, saying in all seriousness, Benefactor, don't carry this little monk. This little monk isn't a rice bag. Go comfort my family's benefactor then. the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said as he stuffed that little bald head into Arba's arms. "Benefactor, your aura of malice is so heavy. You don't know how to speak." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smacked the little fellow's bald head. "What nonsense are you talking about? My Jojo has always been a soft and adorable little fellow. Where did you get your hostility from?" The little monk wrinkled his nose and said in all seriousness, "Benefactor, it's not right for you to lie through your teeth. Benefactress, how about this little monk recite a meditation mantra for you?" Chow Moo's extremely bad mood inexplicably turned for the better after the two people's jesting and jabbering. She nodded and raised her hand to stroke little Baldy's slippery head. "You can read it." Namo, he luo na, duo luo yi. Namo, Ajay. As a result, little Baldy's noisy voice rang incessantly by the young crown prince consort's ears, incessantly prattling on and on. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but roll his eyes. Why did he have the misconception that he should not have let this nagging little Baldy out? Miss Chow carried the nagging little monk and returned to the Chow family's courtyard. Naturally, she did not mention it. Meanwhile, after the horrified Shi Yongqian saw the crown prince consort leave, she immediately leaped in front of her father, family head Shi, and hugged her father's arms. Her throat continuously emitted cracking noises, but she couldn't utter a single word. She glanced at a withered branch on the ground and hurriedly let go of family head Shi's hands. She rushed over to pick up the branch and gestured repeatedly on the ground. But who would have the patience to watch her gesticulate like a crazy woman? Chapter 35-35. The head of the Shi family didn't even look at her and turned to leave. Shi Yongqian rushed forward to block the head of the Shi family. She gesticulated anxiously and waved the branch in her hand, gesturing incessantly at the head of the Shi family. Since she couldn't speak, the head of the Shi family was impatient to the extreme. Seeing that she was still stubbornly blocking his way, he impatiently slapped her across the face. "Wicked girl! Get out of my way!" The eldest son of the Shi family was also furious. The Shi family had so many assets. Just because of this brainless sister of his had committed such a heinous crime, they had to hand it all over to someone else? How could he accept this? How could he be willing? Right now, he wanted nothing more than to kill this foolish sister of his who couldn't do anything right. He pushed Shi Yongqian away forcefully and shouted angrily, "Haven't you had enough of being a fool? Don't you think you've caused enough harm to the family? If you still have a shred of conscience, you'd better get out of the family from now on and stay as far away from the Shi family as possible. The Shi family won't care whether you live or die in the future." Madame Shi wailed and lunged forward to hit her son. "That's your biological sister. Eldest son, how could you say that?" Shi Yongqian fell to the ground and used the branch in her hand to draw on the ground with all her might. As she was drawing, she suddenly realized that her hands were not under her control at all. Just now, her messy actions in front of them had not drawn a single word at all. It was no wonder that everyone was staring at her in bewilderment. What was going on? Could it be that her brain couldn't control her hands anymore? Shi Yongqian stared at her hands in horror. She tried to draw on the ground with all her might, but all she could see was a mess on the ground. She couldn't make out a single word at all. What had this demon-like crown prince consort done to him? Why couldn't her hands even write? She couldn't even write the simple words, "Talisman Master"? She couldn't write. She couldn't speak and her hands couldn't write. How could she complain to others about her grievances? How could she expose that evil Talisman Master to the public? Shi Yongqian scrambled to her feet like a mad woman and threw herself at her parents with all her might. The head of the Shi family ordered with a cold face, "Close the door. From now on, the Shi family will no longer have such an embarrassing daughter." Bang! The two heavy pear blossom wooden doors slammed shut right in front of Shi Yongqian. Madame Shi originally wanted to scream, but after being hit by Patriarch Shi's hand, she naturally fainted and stopped screaming. "Father, Mother! Father! Mom!" Shi Yongqian pounded on the door with all her might and screamed silently. She could not believe that there would be a day where she would be chased out of the Shi family. It was all because of the crown princess. It was all because of that B*TCH that she was chased out of the Shi family and caused her body to become abnormal. She couldn't even speak and her mind was muddled. She wanted to kill that woman. She wanted to kill that woman. Shi Yongqian went crazy. When she saw the citizens around her, she rushed over like a madwoman. When the commoners saw that she had gone crazy, they immediately scattered like birds and beasts. They all scattered and ran out. Shi Yongqian caught hold of a middle-aged woman. Filled with anger, she turned it into a palm and hit the woman's head. The people around her screamed in shock. They thought that the woman would die after being hit by the second daughter of the Shi family. Chapter 35-36. Who would have thought that second Miss Shi's slap would land on the woman's head like cotton? Not to mention hurting the woman in the slightest, her strength probably wouldn't even be able to kill a mosquito. The woman was originally scared to the point that her face was ashen, but in an instant, she regained her senses as if she had been revived. She pushed away the second young miss of the Shi family and swung her thick and round arm, heavily slapping Shi Yongqian's face. "You little wench, how dare you hit me? If I don't show you my power, you think you're invincible." As she spoke, the woman slapped Shi Yongqian's face several times in a row, causing her head to hit the dirt wall next to her. Shi Yongqian's eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. Her lips trembled as she looked down at her hands and shook her head repeatedly. Her expression was extremely frightened. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. How could she not have any cultivation? She didn't have any cultivation? No, it couldn't be. It must have been her imagination? How could she have become a cripple? No, she wasn't a cripple. She definitely shouldn't be a cripple. She was Shi Yongqian, the high and mighty second miss of the Shi family. She was a master blacksmith, the second miss who had 5 levels of spiritual fire and was in the spiritual realm. She had become a cripple. It was Arbor, it must be Arbor. Arbor had given her that fiery pill before and had crippled all her cultivation. What right does a good-for-nothing like you, who can't even take care of yourself, have to stay by the young master's side? Ridiculous. A cripple like you should die. Why aren't you dead yet? Don't you think you're a cripple living in this world with broken arms and legs like a bedbug? Ha, a cripple, a cripple, a cripple. A pair of indifferent eyes stared coldly at the woman who was being pushed to the ground and kicked by the fat woman. He pursed his thin lips and didn't say a word. "Second master, do you want this subordinate to go and save second Miss Shi? Who asked you to be a busybody?" When the subordinate heard his master's words, he immediately lowered his head and didn't dare to say anything else. "Jojo, if you want Shi Yongqian to become a cripple, then I'll do as you wish." Second young master looked at Shi Yongqian coldly and then turned to leave. "Shi Yongqian, have you ever thought that in this life, the one who has become a cripple is you?" Second young mistress Shi turned around and happened to see a familiar piece of clothing at the corner of the street. The color and style of the fabric at the corner of the clothing were so familiar. RXIN. Second young mistress Shi crawled a few steps on the ground in panic. She wanted to shout, but there was no sound. The Shi family's second young mistress finally got up from the ground and stumbled a few steps before she was blocked by a few ruffians and hooligans. A trace of panic flashed through Shi Yongqian's eyes. She dug her fingers into the wall and shook her head at those hooligans. Her eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as she angrily shouted. Without any sound, there would naturally be no deterrence. "Oh, so you're a mute. What an ugly face with a bloody head. Her figure is not bad." A few ruffians with bad intentions surrounded Shi Yongqian and grabbed her hands and started to grope her. "Second master, second young mistress Shi seems to have been pestered by a few hooligans. You talk too much." Qin Xian glanced at the subordinate indifferently. He didn't even look back at Shi Yongqian and immediately left with his men. Chapter 35-37. RXN, don't go, RXN. RXN, save me, don't go. RXN. Shi Yongqian's eyes revealed a look of despair. She stumbled and tried to break free from the hooligan's encirclement, but someone reached out and hugged her waist. A few hands wandered back and forth on her body with evil intentions. She was so shocked that her eyes rolled back and she almost fainted. Without her cultivation and spiritual power, Shi Yongqian was nothing more than a cripple. She couldn't do anything. She couldn't even beat these soft-footed hooligans in front of her. She could only silently cry and wait for them in horror. Her mouth squirmed as she kept shouting, "Let go of me, let go of me." But those hooligans already had crooked thoughts. How could they let go of the prey that was already in their hands? They dragged her into the alley at the side. The crowd that was originally watching the show couldn't help but slowly disperse. Looking at the Shi family's second young mistress being dragged away by the hooligans, some people couldn't help but sigh and shake their heads. The young mistress of the Shi family actually fell into such a state. Her life is worse than a dog's. Shi Yongqian was dragged all the way into the alley. She looked at the ugly hooligans surrounding her in horror. She couldn't help but wave her hands, wanting to resist. Unexpectedly, he was slapped in the face, and the cloth on his shoulder was rudely torn by the person. Shi Yongqian let out a silent scream and hurriedly used her hands to close her clothes. Who would have thought that in the next second, she would be hugged by a local ruffian? With a forceful tug, her clothes were torn apart. As the clothes on her body became less and less, her snow-white skin was clearly seen under the sunlight. The hooligans swallowed their saliva. Their eyes flashed with excitement and they suddenly pounced on the Shi family's second young mistress. Shi Yongqian couldn't make a sound at all. Moreover, she was a soft-footed waste with no cultivation. She couldn't stop these lowly hooligans in front of her. When night fell, the Shi family's second young mistress, who was filthy and ruined, crawled out of the alley like a ghost. Her tears had long dried up the moment she was bullied. What grievances! What hatred! Now, they had all turned into defeat and emptiness. She was like a wandering soul, walking on the street in ragged clothes. There was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, and only a dried blood clot remained on her forehead. She was like a wandering ghost, swaying her body as she walked. Every step she took left a trail of blood, leaving a long trail of blood on the ground. A night watchman was walking towards her. When he saw second Miss Shi's ghostly appearance, he was so frightened that he screamed, thinking that he had seen a ghost. He even threw the night watchman's drum on the ground with a clang and turned around to stumble back to where he came from. Shi Yongqian's head was tilted. Every step she took left a bloody footprint. Her tattered clothes hung on her body like strips. Looking from afar, she really looked like a female ghost that had crawled out from the depths of hell. Even her eyes didn't have a trace of life. The crown princess had forced her to her death. It was the crown princess who forced her to her death. Shi Yongqian stubbornly shouted these words in her heart. She swayed all the way to the entrance of the palace. Today, she was going to hang herself at the entrance of the palace and use her blood to write down her crimes in Arbor. Even if she died, she wanted this heartless woman to go to hell with her. She swayed as she walked. Suddenly, she collapsed on the street as if she was exhausted. Chapter 35-38. It was as if the scene of those ruffians tearing her clothes appeared in front of her eyes. That devilish teasing laughter lingered in her ears for a long time. They were so unbridled as they behaved atrociously on her body, tormenting her in such a cruel manner, tormenting her for several hours. Several hours, ah! In broad daylight, in a small alley like that. She already couldn't count how many people had bullied her. In the end, her body was already numb beyond belief. Shi Yongqian's eyes were red as she forcefully hammered the ground a few times with both hands. Her eyes were filled with empty hatred as she slowly raised her head. Under the illumination of the bright lanterns, she saw the two large characters of the Qin estate. Tears immediately welled up in Shi Yongqian's eyes. Like a worm, she climbed up the tall steps one by one and used her hands to pound on the vermilion door twice. At this time, the street was very quiet. It was already very late at night, and there wasn't a single person on the street. Only Shi Yongqian was like a mad woman as she desperately hammered on the Qin estate's door. However, she was already exhausted. Even if she used all her strength to pound on the door, the sound of knocking was actually just an inaudible dong 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 sound. The servants guarding the door had already fallen asleep and naturally couldn't hear the sound of knocking outside. More and more tears welled up in Shi Yongqian's eyes. She really wanted to go in and ask second young master if he had also passed by the Shi estate's entrance just now. Did he leave her in the lurch? Or was her eyes playing tricks on her? No, that couldn't be. Shi Yongqian comforted her own heart as she collapsed in front of the Qin estate's entrance, repeatedly shaking her head. If Xian saw her being driven out by her family, he definitely wouldn't stand idly by. If Xian had passed by the Shi estate, there was no way he wouldn't have seen those ruffians harassing her. He also wouldn't have left with a flick of his sleeves and completely disregarded her life or death. Shi Yongqian's tears fell one by one, dripping onto the ground. Her eyes were filled with tears, completely blurring the night scene in front of her eyes. Suddenly, a black figure appeared in front of her. Shi Yongqian raised her head in astonishment. When she saw the person's face clearly, her eyes couldn't help but reveal an ecstatic expression. Decoration, Wang Cheng? Wasn't he the second young master's personal bodyguard, Wang Cheng? When Huang Yong lifted her up, Shi Yongqian immediately panicked. She lowered her head and looked at the state of her clothes. She hurriedly wrapped her arms around her body, trying her best to hide all the messy marks on her body. Unfortunately, she was almost naked to begin with. No matter how tightly she hugged herself, it was impossible to cover up the lingering marks on her body. No, don't take me to see second young master. I'm so dirty right now. I don't want to see second young master. Shi Yongqian began to cry. She shook her head repeatedly and opened her mouth to speak a series of words. Wang Cheng naturally could not hear her voice. He carried her to the crane garden where the second young master lived. Shi Yongqian felt that today was the darkest day of her life. She was actually forced to appear in the crane garden with her unkempt and filthy appearance. She looked at the young master of the Omega Kotoku who was sitting in the pavilion and playing chess with an enchanting woman in red. He merely sat there without saying anything. Those exquisite features revealed a faint coldness. Under the moonlight, he appeared as handsome and natural as a jade sculpture. Such a beautiful second young master made Shi Yongqian inexplicably feel a trace of inferiority. Chapter 35-39. She hurriedly took a step back, wanting to retreat behind the rockery to hide. Her body was really too dirty, and she didn't want to meet the godlike man in her heart at this time. The enchanting red-clothed woman in the pavilion raised her eyes and chuckled. "Oh, why do you look so disheveled? You look very miserable." Young Master Omega Kotoku placed a piece and frowned. "You're about to lose." "So what if I lose? It's not like I've lost to you for the first time. Do I need you to remind me?" That woman winked seductively and flipped over to sit on the chess table, throwing herself into second young master's arms. The twins, Tang Quan and Tang Li, who were standing beside the two, couldn't help but feel disgusted. In the past, they didn't know that Ling was a man. Now that they knew that this freaking old demon liked to pretend to be a woman, they felt that she was strange no matter where they looked at her, and usually kept a respectful distance from her. Young Master Omega Kotoku naturally wouldn't let her throw herself at him, and he directly dodged to the side. Flicking his sleeves, he indifferently said, "Take her to the confinement room." Then, he left without even looking at the item before he used it. Shi Yongqian's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley, as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. Was second young master so disgusted that he felt that even a glance at her would dirty his eyes? Just like that, Shi Yongqian's tears fell uncontrollably, and she couldn't hold them back at all. Ling clicked his tongue and threw a green robe to her. "Here, little lady, put it on. TSK, so pitiful. A delicate little beauty has been tormented to this extent. These people are really heavy-handed." Shi Yongqian could hear the mockery in his voice, but there wasn't much sympathy. Her ice-cold fingers tightly gripped the robe on her body, and she found that she was once again picked up by Wang Chung and brought to the confinement room that young Master Omega Kotoku had mentioned. Of course, she knew what kind of place the confinement room was. It was a small confinement room that the Qin estate used to treat prisoners. She had already suffered such a huge grievance, and second young master still wanted to interrogate her as if she was a criminal? Why? Why did he treat her like this? The bitterness in Shi Yongqian's heart almost drowned her. "Go in." Huang Chung forcefully pushed her away, and Shi Yongqian's head crashed into a small room. When she turned around, the entire room had already turned dark, and she could only hear a loud, clang sound. She pounced to the side of the metal door and knocked heavily on it, calling out silently, "RXN." On the other hand, Arbor only received a message from the night pavilion after breakfast, saying that Shi Yongqian had been bullied badly by a group of hooligans. After Stay Up Late finished his report, he stood to the side and looked at the little crown princess, who had an uncertain expression on her face. The crown princess didn't look happy. Her brows were gloomy, as if a thick dark cloud was pressing down on her, which could erupt at any time. "Shameless!" Arbor shouted angrily. "Take some men and find those people. Castrate them all and send them to the Prince of Jianpei's estate to be eunuchs. This crown princess wants this group of animals to beg for death for the rest of their lives." Stay Up Late's mouth twitched, but he didn't dare to say anything else. He could only nod and leave. Qiao Mu forcefully smashed a cup, her face brimming with anger. Kai Xiu hurriedly went forward to clean up the broken pieces. Kai Chi didn't understand, but she still asked boldly, "Your Highness, why is the crown princess unhappy?" You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.